Hi, good afternoon everyone. My name is Jason. Welcome once again to LSBF Openhouse 2020. Time check now is about 3:20. So in 10 minutes time, we have the pleasure of having Miss Hiong, who is here today with us to talk about something that's very relevant in the current climate that we're in. That is leadership and management in trying times. So stay tuned. In 10 minutes time, we have Miss Hiong to share with us shortly. See you soon.
afternoon, everybody. My name is Guat Hiong, and I'll be taking you through this about 20 minutes or so on leadership and management in trying times. Right? So, in the 20th century, right, 1918 to about 1919, in fact, the greatest pandemic at that time was the Spanish flu. And during that period, the flu was confined mainly to the Western Hemisphere. In fact, it started, amongst the soldiers and all, right? And it was mainly confined to, a big part of it was actually confined to the soldiers that were fighting the war and all those in the northern, in the Western Hemisphere, right? So, for the Spanish flu itself, why we call it as the greatest pandemic during the 20th century is because it infected about 500 million people, and in terms of the mortality rate, about 50 million lives were actually lost. But what about now? What are we facing in the 21st century? I'm sure all of you have heard about SARS, right? So that was the first pandemic in the 21st century, and it actually happened around end of 2012 to middle July of 2013 itself. And this time around, instead of focusing mainly on the Western Hemisphere, this time around, I think most of the impact was in Asia Pacific. Of course, there are countries in other areas as well, right? But most of the impact was confined to the Asia Pac. And for me, because at that time, I was working in an electronics telecommunications company, and one of our workers was infected with SARS when she actually visited her mother, who was hospitalized in one of our public hospitals, right? And our HR, our human resource, got a call and saying that, because part of contact tracing, so the Ministry of Health in Singapore actually called up our HR during that time, sometime in April 2013, and wanted to find out information about this particular employee, like who does she normally work with and so forth. And finally, because when I was part of the crisis management team, right, we called together, of course, our team, and we decided to, we actually decided to call off some of our shifts, okay, because we run like 3 shifts operation, but our priority has always been the employees, right? So we actually called off the shift, and on top of that, we had to quarantine beyond, in fact, what the Ministry of Health recommended, which was about 300 odd employees. We actually go beyond that and we quarantine the full shift where this employee was working. Right? And in fact, our efforts, not just in the quarantine, but me at that time, I was also working as the facilities manager as well as the safety and health manager, right, for the company. We had to do extensive disinfection, regular disinfection, and also very extensive communication also to keep our employees posted. And in fact, many of the efforts that we put in, they were also praised by Ministry of Health at that time, as well as I was able to share with the AmCham, which is the American Chamber of Commerce, with other American companies on how we deal, right, with the situation at that time. So now, what are we facing? Okay, now actually, will this be the greatest pandemic in the 21st century? We don't know yet, okay, and the one that I'm talking about is COVID-19. What is in all our minds right now is really COVID-19. Okay? You can go to the worldometer and you can see that the count, right, has actually gone beyond 1 million today. And out of that 1 million, close to 59,000 deaths already. Okay? So in fact, when you compare the current COVID-19 in terms of the mortality rate, it's only about 3 to 4% versus, let's say, SARS, which is about close to 10%, right? Or even for the Spanish flu at that time, it's also about 10%. Okay? But then we don't know, because when you're dealing with the biological hazard, when you're dealing with the virus, it keeps on mutating. Right? So now it could be 4%, but we don't know what it will become later. So for the COVID-19, right, many of the governments worldwide, and in fact even for WHO, they have also mentioned that it is going to be a long-term type of an effect. It's not going to be over like SARS. You know, in Singapore it was over in about 3 months or so, right? Or worldwide, okay, probably from start to end, it ended about 8 months. But then for this particular COVID-19, what we are looking at is it could go beyond even 2020, right? So what does all this mean? Of course, there's a lot of economic impact for in any pandemic situation, but more so for the COVID-19, right? Because currently what we are seeing is different, because unlike the previous 2 pandemics, now we are talking about a global spread. Okay? And it touches each and every level in the organization, in the community. Okay? So it doesn't discriminate whether, you know, are you a healthcare worker, are you a student, are you the elderly, and so forth. Okay? So we are in for the long haul, and I'm sure all of you would have read, whether within your own country or globally, you would have seen that governments are taking very, very drastic measures to contain the virus within their country, right, and to avoid community spread. And even yesterday in Singapore, our Prime Minister, Lee Hsien Loong, he was talking about a circuit breaker, right? So later I will tell you a little bit more about what we plan to do and how we can actually, how it will affect us, right, as managers, as leaders of workplaces, okay? So there's major lockdown in terms of the supply chain itself. So to reiterate, you see, for COVID-19, it will affect, and it is affecting every one of us. Okay? So be it whether you are CEO, whether you of a multinational company, or even if you are a self-employed person, it is going to affect how you are going to work, how you are going to keep your business afloat, or whether you are going to take or find opportunities, right, to grow at this time. So I coined this as pandemic leadership. Okay, so different from our normal day-to-day type of leadership. Why? Because now the situation is unique, and when you look at situational leadership in this particular case, more so you have to apply. Okay, because you are looking at the situation of COVID-19 evolving constantly, right? So as leaders, basically what we are saying is that we have to be prepared for the long haul. Okay. So the future, in terms of our work, in terms of the way that we live, right, our life is going to change. So in pandemic leadership, basically in terms of the principles, what we are looking at is really how to challenge the process. That means day in, day out, this is the way that you are running your business, or even as, let's say, even as students, right? We have always been used to having face-to-face kind of a lecture, but now what you are saying is that, hey, we might need to do things differently, just like this open house itself, right? So we are not talking about face-to-face open house, but having live streaming type of open house. So it's a first for many of us, right? So, and the other one would be how to inspire as leaders. We are accountable, you like it or not. We are accountable for our employees. So no matter how, even in these trying times, we still have to inspire them, right? So still have to keep on motivating them and let them know that, hey, values are important, and particularly their safety is always important to us at this time, more so than just the business itself. Okay? And of course, we model the way, meaning that as leaders, we have to set the example. So even if we look at, even if you're talking about like telecommuting, working from home, we as leaders have to take that first step, right? To say that, hey, we are the first to ensure that, you know, we can work from home and we can work effectively from home. Okay. Another one would be really, because at this time, what we are looking at is how to collaborate with others, because perhaps there could be some sharing of resources that may be needed, such that overall, right, as a community, we find that we are able to get through this whole COVID situation and come out even stronger. So sometimes we might even have to, like I said, collaborate with our logistics supplier, with our material supplier and so forth, to see what is the best way that we can all still maintain some minimum level, I would say, of business that will benefit everyone. Okay. And of course, you want to continue, like I say, to give your employees hope. That's why we are saying encourage the heart. So if we find that there are employees amongst us or people in our community that goes above and beyond what they normally do, right? Then of course, now is a good time as well as leaders, okay, to appreciate their efforts. So coronavirus, like it or not, this one, it came out in our local newspaper, 2nd of April. At that time, our Ministry of Manpower was saying that to strongly encourage, okay, workplaces, to strongly encourage the employees to work from home. Of course, we do recognize that not every workplace, not every employee can work from home. So at that time, it was only strongly encouraged, and of course, there could be a stop work order, things like that, right? That will so-called nudge the workplaces to work from home. But since yesterday, there was an announcement that was made in our, there was a press release that was given, right, by our COVID-19 task force that says that only certain, or what we call essential services, are allowed to work on site. Other than that, basically, it's all workplaces. All other workplaces will have to stop operation, right, and they have to work from home. So, is telecommuting then going to be a new normal? Maybe as a leader, you have not tried telecommuting, not on a full scale as yet, right? So now would be the time to try it out. And I was looking at this cartoon in our papers. So it was quite interesting because you see, now it's not just the workers who are asked to work from home, but even our schools are going to be closed middle of next week, right, on Wednesday, from Wednesday onwards. So then you will find that the school kids are going to work from home, okay? Work from home, study from home, okay? So now you will find that, hey, the mom here is saying that, oh, the ministry stated you need to spend 2 hours on the computer to do your work, okay? So this, the father was very happy. He said, okay, great, only 2 hours. So he was very happy, right? But then actually what the mom was referring to is what I was talking to our son and not you. So that to the father, he thought that, hey, it's very good. Ministry of Manpower probably say that I only need to work from home for 2 hours. Okay, so telecommuting is something new. Some of us, of course, like myself, we have been telecommuting for many years already because we are, let's say like when I was taking a regional role, right, some of my time I will need to, I do telecommute because sometimes we do have work or we have calls late into the night, okay? So then the next day we do our telecommuting, we work from home. So there are many benefits, of course, from telecommuting. Right? For example, you have flexible working hours and you think that, hey, yep, I will have better work-life balance and so forth. Okay? But then there's also some downside of telecommuting, especially when you start to work from home. You may have other distractions. I mean, you like it or not, the fridge is nearby. Okay? You like it or not, your children are also going to be nearby with you. Okay? And if you are not equipped properly. You may not have sufficient resources, right, to be able to work effectively from home. Okay? So that is what we call as technology struggles. Okay? So depending on what is the setup that you have at home, and also depending on the country that you operate in, sometimes the struggles may be more, some less. Okay? But I think more importantly is that we humans, being social animals, we may find that, hey, okay, 1 week working from home, you like it a lot, you're very happy because you thought that, yeah, more time spent with my family. But then before you know it, right, if it gets to a couple more weeks and so, then you start to feel what? A little bit alienated, a little bit disconnected. So then we as leaders, we will have to come in and see, okay, how to ensure that we continue to motivate our staff, right? How to give them like mini projects to so-called check in on them, but in a nice way, in a sense that just to make sure that there's still some socializing going on. Not just simply say that, hey, it's out of sight, out of mind, okay? And the other big impact of the COVID-19 virus is really reshaping of our supply chain. Because you like it or not, workers are not able to come in, let's say, to work, or even like, let's say, for example, from other countries, right, where we have foreign talents, they may not be able to come in, okay, at this point in time. Or we have like, what, close to 300,000 Malaysian workers in Singapore that travels daily between Malaysia and Singapore. So there will be some disruption, I'm sure, because now we do not allow any of them to travel. So those who can stay in Singapore, yes, they stay here, right? So when we talk about reshaping of the supply chain, all along we have always been trying to look at optimizing in terms of efficiencies. But now, with the COVID-19 situation, actually we should be optimizing what we call resilience, because you are in for the long haul. Okay? So we are going to change from just-in-time type of input, right, where you have only just-in-time delivery of your materials, or you see that, hey, I have a ramp up, I need to increase headcount, you call in contract headcounts, tomorrow or so forth, right? So instead of just having to optimize the efficiencies, now you find that because of disruption to the supply chain, we may even need to start looking at diversifying our sources, right? To keep inventories to a certain level, and I think most of us have faced this shortage of masks, right? That one. And also how to shore up our operations such that, we become more productive, okay, even with fewer headcounts in place. So there are other opportunities that we can look at. For example, at this point in time as leaders, I think this would be a good opportunity to start thinking about ahead rather, right? As to how we can make use of some of the technologies in Industry 4.0 to help us to make our operation more productive. So in fact, I was reading Channel News Asia about opportunities in times of crisis, where this boy from Philippines, he had a 3D scanner, and 3D printer rather, and what he did was that he actually printed some face masks, right, and donates it to the hospital. So I'm thinking that, hey, as leaders, these are some things that we can start to look at in terms of opportunities, right? Because even for example, some of the we are gaming companies in Singapore that are already starting to look at how to produce face masks. There are companies that, for example, like Foxconn, right? Yeah, instead of just producing telecommunication products, they're also looking at producing other healthcare related kind of products, right? So the opportunities are endless. You don't have to confine yourself as leaders to say that, hey, I've been producing or I've been in this industry for the last 50 years. This is only what I know how to do. No, I don't think now is the time to have this kind of thoughts, right? You have to you will need to actually look at beyond what you are already doing and look for opportunities out there and see how you can actually manage the change in your company so that it can go smoothly and you are still there for the long haul. Okay. I added this slide on pandemic leadership because as leaders, I feel that sometimes there will come a point in time where we will need to say, okay, we have been taking baby steps in controlling the outbreak. But once it goes above a certain critical point, then we may need to take what we call a circuit breaker kind of a step, right? So as leaders, I think one of the things that we have to look at is always be decisive. When is that point in time, okay, in your own company where you say that you need to take more drastic kind of action? And I guess the other thing is you also have to be visible. So I will talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so as pandemic leaders, I think pandemic leadership, right, now is really very critical for us in terms of communication, okay, so that we keep our employees posted on what are the steps that we are going to do. Because they would have read in the papers, they would have read in social media to say that, hey, this country no longer allowing, employees or workers to come in, right, from whichever country, or whichever one is stopping the delivery of materials and so forth. So as your workers, naturally they will be what? They will be anxious. So how are we going to continue working? So leaders, I think in pandemic situation, communication is one of the key things, such that you be honest, right, with the employees as to what are the steps that you are taking, how it is going to affect them. Because we are not there to say that, hey, no, it's going to be business as usual. It is not going to be. Okay? So we have to be truthful as to say how it will affect them. And of course, we have to be optimistic ourselves. Okay? Because if we ourselves are not optimistic, then of course we don't expect our employees to be optimistic also. And visible leadership is important. In the sense that when we talk about visible leadership, of course, in a normal circumstances, it will be more like, oh, you can go and interact with your employees, you can go and walk the factory floor and be seen and so forth, right? But in this situation now, I think we will have to employ technologies like Zoom or some other form of meeting platforms to at least, or even sometimes just to give your employee a call, okay? Even it doesn't mean that you only need to call those employees who reports directly to you, but I think it will mean a lot at this time to call those employees who are working at the front line, right? The so-called the lower level, okay? Even the administrative person or the security guard who is providing service to your company, okay? Because I think now is a good time for you to make that bond, okay, with your employees. And of course, you have to be innovative. I mentioned that you should try to identify what are the opportunities out there, okay, going beyond what you are already doing. And of course, we have to be driven. Because driven meaning that, yes, we will go through this. So, business continuity management at this point in time is going to be even more important in your company. Okay? And one of the executive programs that we have here in London School of Business and Finance is crisis management training. Okay? So it's not just looking at responding to emergencies, not just looking at crisis management, but actually going beyond and seeing how to recover, how to resume, right, your business. So basically, when we look at pandemic leadership, right, together we can beat this crisis, okay, as long as we work together. And any crisis that will come our way. Okay, I'll get Jason now to speak a few words.
Thank you very much, Hiong, for sharing insights from your experience dealing with different crises. Just once again, my name is Jason from the Executive Development Program Department. So in fact, I know Hiong for a while now. In fact, somebody I look up to as a mentor. Of course, I learned many things from her. So I also have the pleasure, of course, of working with her to partner with her actually to run a few programs at LSBF, mainly some of our leadership programs. In fact, we run 3 particular programs with Hiong, which is Strategic Leadership and Change, Leadership and Management Technique, which is targeted at new managers, as well as Practical Project Management Program. So we are running these programs. Of course, now we know the situation is uncertain, things changes by the day, but of course we remain hopeful. And of course, we also, some of the programs have the option of running the parts of it at least online. So maybe, again, there are days to reduce face-to-face interaction, but of course without suffering the effectiveness of the program. So of course we are having some promotion as part of today's open house. So if you contact us via this email, jason.j.hua@lsbf.edu.sg, and provide the promo code LSBF2020, you will enjoy discount for the course. So we hope, thank you again for joining us for today's LSBF Open House. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you.